Welcome to the Expert in You podcast, the show for professional entrepreneurs, experts, authors, speakers, coaches, and consultants who are ready to elevate their business, expand their influence, and boost their bank accounts. Join us as we dive deep with industry-leading experts who share their top strategies, invaluable insights, practical tips, and personal experiences to help you achieve extraordinary growth and success. Whether you're looking to sharpen your skills, stay ahead of the curve, or find that competitive edge, this podcast is your ultimate resource for unlocking your full potential. So tune in, get inspired, grab your coffee, and let's unlock the expert in you. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Expert in You podcast. I'm your host, Jan Carden, and I have to tell you, I'm so excited for my guest today. She lights up a room and she is going to light up this podcast. Let me tell you, I have Miss Tammy Cox with me today. Hi, Tammy.
Hi, Miss Ann. Thank you for having me.
I'm excited to have you. She is so amazing. She is a marriage coach for women, high level, high achieving professional women that tend to sometimes put their marriages on the back burner or struggle as they're climbing the success ladder. And so we are going to dive into all of this today. So this is going to be a great conversation. I think, Tammy, you are the second marriage coach I've had on my podcast in the entire 4 years that I've had it. So yeah, so I think it's going to be really, really good for
Juicy.
everyone. Very juicy. Yeah, we'll have to watch Tammy because she's a juicy kind of gal.
Yes. Yes.
So it should be fun. So Tammy, how long have you been doing this? Just give us a little bit of your backstory. She has a backstory too, by the way, and she's going to kind of walk through why she got into this as well.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
Okay. So I will start at when I became a wife and a mom. All my triggers started sounding like my oldest she's about to be 16. When I had her, that is when all of my trauma started to bubble to the surface. And what had happened was I didn't realize, I think most of us are like this, but I didn't realize that I had all this unhealed trauma from my childhood that I sort of ignored through my teenage years and through my early 20s. And here I am now married with a child, and all of a sudden it hits me like I am not okay. And this is where my healing journey started, but it was a long road. It doesn't always have to be, but
right?
my road was long, you know. I seem to have to learn things the really hard way. So anyways, I started seeking help. I started doing counseling, therapy. I sought out, religion, retreats. I mean, you name it. And things would help a little bit, like they'd get a little better, but then they wouldn't, things would go back to the way that they were. And it was several years until I really found something that actually got to the root cause of the issue. And it was really healing those old wounds. It was like trauma work, And as I started working through my stuff, I started to shift and transform and change. And one area that was just the most devastating for me when I was in my deepest, darkest moments was my marriage. Why? Because that is the closest mirror anyone can hold up. You live with the person, you share a bed with the person, you share a closet with the person. You can't get away. You share everything.
You can't get away from them. That's right.
You share DNA with them, right? And so it was just the most painful thing for me because I felt for so many years that he was rejecting me and pushing me away. And what I found in my journey was I wasn't letting him in. I wasn't letting him love me. So I had to really look at my childhood and my wounds. My father died when I was very young of AIDS, all this emotional stress and strain, very controlled environment when I was young. I had to sift through all the damage caused to me early in life so that I could create the new identity. And so here I am today. I obviously chose to heal myself because at certain points I was like, I'm not sticking around. I'm going to take myself out of the game, but I am just a testament to you could change anything about yourself that you wish. So for my biggest pain point, which is marriage, that's really my desire to help women who are struggling with that like me. and they maybe don't know that they have the wounds. And it's me that's kind of, opening their eyes to see the connection, but they're just desperate for their husband's attention. They're desperate to be loved. And I'm the person that they call for that.
I love it. And she is really brilliant. Tammy and I have known each other now for, gosh, probably a couple of years, I think. And I follow her even just to see what she's doing. And I always get these great little nuggets from her and just love it. And so definitely you can follow her on social, and she's very out there.
Thank you.
But Tammy, so when you started on your healing journey, you did a lot of things, but then something shifted or something changed. Was that a program? Was that a coach? Was it a multitude of things? Like, what do you attribute that to?
It was a multitude of things. One big thing that I work on with my clients now, because now my program is all around the things that really broke through for me. So
that made a difference. Yeah.
Right. So the first one we got to look at is the forgiveness piece.
So good. Yeah.
And typically the forgiveness needs to come. Now it's easy to see from a surface level. Oh, this person did me wrong. This, that, and the other. And so, but when we go inside and look, what is most disturbing to us is our unforgiveness towards ourselves for the mistakes we made. And so forgiveness is the first piece we get to look at. It's kind of like the first layer as we kind of dive down deep into the root's down here. We got to go level by level. And so forgiveness is a huge piece of it. We also get to look at the beliefs. So my goal with my clients is get to the belief as fast as possible. So say you come to me, you're like, my husband's ignoring me. Okay. What's the emotion? They identify the emotion. I'm like, take me back to the first time you felt this emotion. And by doing that, we're going all the way down, all the way down, all the way back. We get to the core issue really fast this way. So it's actually because me going through my journey, I've learned much shorter versions of the journey, right? That's right. That's why people hire me, because they want
bunny by speed, everyone.
Yeah.
It does. Yeah.
So this is what I find works best, is to really identify. And that's where we get to find the exact belief. And once we can identify it, so my 2 commands, I like to tell people this because it helps them to understand themselves more. We have these things called commands, and they are the limiting beliefs that are literally controlling our life until we can bring them into the light of your consciousness, right? So my 2 were, I'm unlovable and I'm not important. And with these 2 beliefs running the show, creating my whole life, it affected every relationship I had. So when I identified that, and then I went back in my mind and looked through all the memories I had, all the stored memories, they were the commands that came up in every negative traumatic event in my life, all of them, the same commands. And so when I find these for my clients, we can now shift quite easy because we really found the problem, which is, and everyone has different ones. Their core commands are very different. So for instance, mine around men, because I grew up with an abusive dad, a controlling dad. It was men are scary, men hurt me, and then men leave me. As my dad ended up dying when I was 11. And so with these kind of beliefs tracked on my subconscious mind, my program setting, it was just playing out over and over and over again throughout my life in all the relationships. So I feel like in order for me to help another shift as quickly as possible, it's really identifying them very fast. And usually we find the biggest one in the first session.
So great. So Tammy, I know a lot of people would say, okay, Tammy, you're not a therapist, right? And this comes up with coaches a lot. You're not a therapist, although just FYI, a lot of therapists are going into coaching because they actually can do more with people. But how would you describe the difference between what you do and what a therapist does?
Results.
And in what way? So what do they do that
okay, so this is just common scientific fact now. Talk therapy does not work. Now, there are therapists that use modalities that do work. I'm a big fan of EMDR. It's very similar to a process I do. And there's other ones that are brilliant. But if you're going to a counselor, a therapist that is just talking to you about stuff, it's been proven it does not work. In fact, If a couple is having issues and they go to a couples counselor, a couples therapist, their divorce rate is much higher. I mean, look at the stats on it. Their divorce rate is so high. And part of that is because they were kind of doomed when they went in. So I'm not going to totally blame it on the therapists, but we just get to look at the stats and say, this isn't working to talk. So for instance, if my husband and if I think the problem is my husband doesn't put his clothes in the hamper and he's not helping me around the house and, he's not telling me he loves me and holding my hand. If I think that's the problem and I go to the therapist and we talk for an hour about that, how is that getting to the root cause of
Right.
the fact that I don't believe I'm lovable?
And
And that there's nothing my husband can do or say to me to help me to feel lovable because it's an inward thing.
Right. No, I think that's so important. And that's why I wanted to bring it out. Because I know a lot of people that have done marriage counseling and marriage therapists, and it just hasn't worked real well for them, or they end up not going because one person gets attacked, the other person doesn't. So there are a lot of things, but I am a big believer in what coaches do, obviously, because I've just seen the amazing results. I've worked as a coach, I've worked with a lot of mindset coaches, helping them in their business, and I am blown away by the results that they are able to get people by getting into the subconscious, being able to make those shifts and really dig those roots out, pull those roots out, and just reframe things. So I think it's so, so valuable. I love that you're doing this for marriage, though, because our divorce rate is, oh my gosh, it's so sad. And I know you and I talked about this. The thing that most people don't realize is if they don't fix their junk, they will carry the junk into the next relationship and the next one. And that's why you will see people that have been married 4 and 5 times, and you think, how can they be married 4 and 5 times? It's because they never fix the issues. And what's the common denominator?
It's always the other person, right?
Right, exactly. Except that can that really be the case if it's 4 or 5 people later, right? No, what's the common denominator there? Who's the common denominator? And so if you don't work on yourself and you don't fix what's going on with you, you can't really show up to be the best for the other person anyway. That's one piece of it, but you will just carry that baggage with you. So tell me, I love that you're helping professional women with careers, women that are high achievers and run businesses, because this can be a tough thing for couples, for a female to be running a business, being successful. So I would love to dig into that a little bit more.
Okay. Do you want me to just go for it?
Go for it.
Okay. So as I was telling you, we are kind of at a place in our evolvement where women and men are now equals. We're not property. We're not lesser than. We are closer to equals than we ever have been. What does this mean? It means that women make the same as men. What does that mean? It means that the whole energy of a marriage is off. Why? Because she doesn't need him to survive. She doesn't need him to survive. So now what we're seeing in love relationships is there is a big turnover, not just in divorce, but in relationships. People are going through the phases, right? And it is our invitation to look within, because of course we're the common denominator, but we also have to look at marriage. The system itself is quite broken, right? And the reason why I think is for like I just said, is the fact that the energy has changed. She no longer needs him. What that means is that he's going to need to level up, right? And what I find with high achieving women is they have put their careers, they have put their all their energy into their careers, right? Their career is everything. That's like what they're pouring themselves into. And oftentimes they look back and there's their husband way behind them going, hey. And they're so far apart that, it's our job to close that gap, right? And so those are the two biggest things that I see with women is one, the energy is completely different because she thinks in a different way, right? She's high achieving, and yet she seems to be a little handicap in the relationships department. because that wasn't her focus for so long.
Right.
Her worth was wrapped up in how much money she made. So she tends to be extremely good in her career and her job. And then the marriage it's not the same. Right. So
Right.
that's usually where I come in and sort of bringing what was successful in one to the other to balance that out. But he gets to meet her where she's at too. He's got to up level his emotional intelligence too, because what used to work before where he can like treat her like garbage,
Mm-hmm.
she doesn't have to put up with that anymore.
Right. The other thing I was going to ask you, so as a woman is building a business, I've been doing this 34 years,
Right.
and you are always in growth mode, right? Everything's in growth mode. But maybe he works the job, and so he's not on the personal development track. He's
Mhm.
not doing all of the growth things that she is doing. So how does someone bring that person up to that level? How does that happen if he is not willing to put in that kind of effort? Or is that making sense?
Yeah. No, I totally get it. I get asked this question constantly. How how does she save her marriage without him being on board?
There we go. That's a better way to say it. But well, yeah.
It is,
Go
it's
ahead.
just, it's the truth, right? Typically, it's never a 50-50. Why? Because just look back at a marriage. I'll take my own, for example. There were times where I was just like, I'm done. I'm done trying with you. I'm exhausted, blah, you know? And
Mhm.
then there's been times where he's like, yeah, let's go, let's go, let's go. Or I'm like, yeah, let's go, let's fix this. What can we do? And he's like, bleh. We're not always going to be on the same page every step of the way. But here's what I know to be true because it is my personal journey. It's the journey of my clients. When you shift you, when you change every single thing in your life. And so for me, when I didn't need my husband to validate me by telling me, which it never worked. When I say
Right.
need, that's just for lack of a better word. When I didn't show up saying, "Oh, you don't love me, and why don't you do that?" When I changed that and I was the love that I needed, and I knew how absolutely lovable I am from inside of me, I showed up as a different person because I wasn't clinging on him, begging for him
Right.
to love me.
Hmm.
The love
And
was
that's a lot
already
of
within.
pressure to put on a person as well. And I think that's an important thing for people to know too. If you're looking for someone else for you to be happy or to have joy, that is putting a lot on another person. We're responsible for that within
They can't,
ourselves.
no one else is
Hmm.
responsible for our happiness.
Right.
It is a state of being that we choose. And it's the reason why two people can go through the exact same experience and have such a massive difference in perspective because
Hmm.
they're not perceiving it the same way. It's, the prescription lens. I always talk about it. You got the negative prescription lens, generally speaking, and the positive prescription lens. Now I look back and I say, every traumatic, horrible, awful thing I went through was for my growth and my benefit.
Hmm.
And I couldn't say that back when I was in it, or even maybe shortly after. I had to go through the full healing process before I could see it as the absolute gift it is. And so when we do that, our when we're so filled with love ourselves because we gave it to us and we
Hmm.
said, I'm going to experience this, and who cares what he experiences. So for me, this is what happens when someone first starts with me. There's a pattern. The first time, the spouse is going to be uncomfortable. And I kind of warn them, hey, when you change the system,
Hmm.
same with my husband. When I changed the system and I showed up differently, he was uncomfortable. He's like, where's my fighting
Right.
buddy? This is the way
Right.
we do it. Why aren't you fighting back? Like, he was very confused. And in his heart, I knew he was uncertain as to whether or not I was going to stay. And the truth was, I wasn't even certain. I was just like, I want to be happy. I'm choosing to be happy. And wherever you're at, do it. I put the
Hmm.
blinders on and I went within myself. And that's what I have my clients do. I say, we're focusing on you. He's not even here. He's
Hmm.
gone for now. And what happens is they start responding differently to their wives because their wives literally change.
Hmm.
The insecure one, the offensive woman is no longer there. So they don't, the dynamic has to shift. because she changed.
Right.
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 And another piece of this is the responsibility aspect. If we don't take responsibility for the polarity in the relationship, meaning, I have a lot of women who have more controlling husbands, more on the, I hate to use the word narcissist because I hate it. But if they have more of that kind of husband,
The
which most of my
tendencies.
clients do,
Right.
they have to take responsibility as the allower of all the shit. Like they have to, sorry, I know you're probably going to have to bleep me out. They have to take on their part of it and say, I allowed the behavior. Like I see my part in it. I stayed with them. I allowed it here. And then it got progressively worse because there's always progression. When I look at, there's always progression, and she allowed it and she allowed it and she allowed it.
Right.
And then it got worse. Then it got louder. Then it got louder. But we get to look at our part in it because it's the opposite side of the same coin. The
And don't you
narcissist
think though,
needs the
sometimes,
supporter.
don't you think sometimes too, they don't know how to deal with it. So the way they deal with it is to sort of fight back or accept it. And it
Yeah.
just, like you
Well,
said, it
I'm the
progressively
controller.
gets worse.
So I'm the controller, and I will say this. We kind of we're like, so all of this, whenever we're triggered, our behaviors when we get triggered is the same as when we were a little kid, right? So this
Right.
is where the inner child work comes in. Every time I get triggered, I know exactly what age I am. I know who's coming out. And so I get to look at that and heal it. So for the supporter wife who has the controller husband, when he has his tantrum, and I know I tell her this, I'm like, imagine him as a 4-year-old boy and he's so scared because that's what's happening within him. He's scared
Right.
and he's frightened and he looks like a man. He's full grown, but what's going on is that little boy inside of him is fighting. He's so scared.
Because
And
things are changing and he doesn't know how to deal with it. Right.
yeah. And
Mm-hmm.
so I teach her how to deal with his tantrums because he wants exactly what she wants.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone wants the same thing. We all want to experience loving on opposite
Right.
sides. We want to be love, we want to feel love, and we also want to give love. And when we understand that, then we can look at their behavior. We get to sympathize for the fact that their childhood trauma created what they are. And
Mm-hmm.
there's a piece of you that was drawn to them for a reason.
Right.
But like my husband and I, we have opposite trauma bonds. So when I trigger him, he gets scared because he's a supporter. He gets scared and, curls up and wants to run away. And mine is like a lion and goes, crazy. And as we just used to go like this in cycles and just
Mm-hmm.
constantly trigger. And I had to learn to be safe for him. So through my healing journey, that's what happened. When I was safe for him, all of a sudden he could come out. He could feel
Mm-hmm.
like he could feel safe to like talk to me and share with me. So it was my transformation that encouraged his transformation. And that's what I see with all my clients. It's inevitable. And it even happened with my children because those are all my relationships.
Right.
They all got to heal because I healed. And neutralizing trauma it affects 7 generations forward as well as 7 generations back. Are you familiar with the Bible in
You
the Old
told me
Testament?
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Uh-huh.
So
Yes.
I believe that's talking about trauma. And so when we
Right.
heal it, because trauma is tracked on our DNA actually, and
Mm-hmm.
as we heal it, we are healing our lineage. So it's
Right.
actually quite beautiful. And I tell people that too. I'm like, if you won't heal for you, because as supporters, they hardly are ever willing to do things for themselves. And I have to
Mm-hmm.
tell them, like, do it for your kids.
Yeah.
Do it
No,
for those
that's
babies who are taking on all of your shit because our children take on all of our stuff, good and bad. But when I
mm-hmm.
shifted me, I shifted them too.
So you said something like, I teach them how to deal with those tantrums. Give some examples of that, Tammy. I know people are probably thinking, really?
Yeah.
How do you do that, right?
Okay.
So yeah, share some examples.
Okay. I'm going to just use myself. So when I have a tantrum, and I kind of instruct like I always go back after. I'm like, babe, I'm sorry. That was not about you. That's the little 4-year-old coming out. She was scared about this, and that. It
Mm-hmm.
helps to let them know. And obviously I'm on this side to it, but then I'll give the other side too. It helps them to know why you're triggered. So if you can kind of dig into, okay, I got triggered by this. Why did I get triggered by that? Oh, well, I believe that happened.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought this thought, and then this belief popped in. Kind of know your belief patterns so that you could be like tracking your own triggers.
Mm-hmm.
For me, a big trigger I have now is when I perceive my kids to disrespect me or, um, talk back, something like that.
Oh, like kids do.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
Well, I have two teenagers and I had to like dig into it. What am I upset about? What am I hurt about? Oh, I believe I'm a bad mom. That was the belief. So
Mm.
I could track it back to the belief that I held that created. So if we do that, if we can do that, we can really start to understand each other. But if you're looking at your spouse, listen to their words, watch their patterns. What are they
Mm-hmm.
getting triggered by? What is it? And then start to ask them questions after the fact.
Mm.
After, don't do it in the moment. It would be like I told you, in the moment, you want to soothe them because see them as that little tiny person, right? That
Mm-hmm.
if it's your husband, see that little tiny boy in there. I noticed that it's around 4 or 5.
Interesting.
See that little 4 or 5-year-old boy, and then I have them come up with a healing color, whatever color feels good to them, because the first two languages we learn when we're born into this world is color and emotion. And those get squished into one language when we're very young. So I use a lot of that when I go through processes with people, but everyone has their healing color and it'll come to you
Mm-hmm.
like that. Put them in a bubble of that healing color and just see that coming over them. Usually my clients say it works so fast. When I do it, it works so fast, but you're intentionally just surrounding them with like peace and love, and you're giving them just like that calm, right? That they
Mm.
can't find in that moment. So
Mm-hmm.
that's a really great practice. I know for
So it
people who,
really kind of takes the emotion out of the situation for you,
yes.
and it really in a caring
Well, that's the
way.
way that
It's
you're going to help them, right? And
right,
if you have eyes to see that they're just in pain instead of
right.
being like, and getting triggered back. So when I
Mm-hmm.
stopped getting triggered back and I saw this person, I'm like, they're just in pain.
Right.
They're just absolutely in pain. And this is the way that they deal with their pain. The
Mm-hmm.
compassion piece is everything. And I find with women I work with, when they start going through their own stuff and start having compassion for themselves, then they can see their spouse and have compassion for them and really
Right.
everyone. So the compassion piece is huge. And then also detaching yourself and noticing this isn't me, this is them.
That's a
So the
really
codependency
important,
is a big
yes,
piece.
that's a
So
big piece.
so
Mm-hmm.
I think I was telling you this last time is like if I'm not okay or if my husband's not okay, I don't make it about him anymore.
Right.
I say I'm going to go put myself in timeout, or if he's in a bad mood and he's in my space, I'm going to go to the other room and I'm not going
Mm-hmm.
to make it about me. I'm going to give him grace and compassion, just saying,
Mm-hmm.
he's having a hard day. I had one of those last week, like
Right.
recognize that we have hard days and we don't have to make a meaning of that for ourselves and say, oh, well, I'm just a terrible person and he hates me. And all
Mm-hmm.
these stories we make up about ourselves, we could just say, my husband's having a hard day. Like, I'm just going to send him love and go that way.
Right. It's just that simple. Yeah.
Hi, friend. I have an exciting announcement. I hope you're enjoying this episode of Expert in You podcast, but I have to ask you, have you checked out the latest issue of Expert in You magazine yet? It's jam-packed with rich content, powerful strategies, inspiring stories, and so much more to help you elevate your business and personal growth. Don't miss out. Go grab your digital copy now and join our community of experts making a difference every day. Go to expertinyoumagazine.com and check out your digital copy today. Transform your expertise into success with Expert in You magazine. It's not just a publication, it is a movement.
One of the most
It can
powerful
be.
things I heard, you and I were in a program together,
Uh-huh.
and one of the most powerful things I heard was 10 plus 10 equals 30. And that was so significant when they said, when he's a 10, when he's acting a 10 and he's being a 10 and you're a 10, it actually means 30 in a marriage because
Mm-hmm.
it's so powerful for both people to be stepping up and taking responsibility to be at that 10 for, okay, am I being a 10 as a wife? It He has to be a 10 as a husband, right? And what do we need to do to get back to that? And I think that was a really powerful thing for me to hear. I had
Mm-hmm.
never heard that before. And I thought that was a really cool thing.
Well, it only takes one. There, I always say, he who has the strongest energy always wins. My will is always going to be stronger. And so when it's my temperament, but also like I have this idea and belief that everywhere I go, I'm going to up level it. And so it doesn't matter if it's picking up like trash in front of my gym. It doesn't matter what it is. I am going to leave that place better than I found it. And so with that belief that I hold, you know, when I come into the relationship, it's going to, it doesn't matter what relationship it is going to up level. Right. And so I think I kind of went through this with you, like the supporter, she's kind of down here. She tends to make herself small. She minimizes herself. Right. And the controller is then empowered, right? And she continues year after year to hand him her power, And so my goal really is to get her so empowered within herself that the dynamics go like this. They'll never be 100%, but we need to get on the same level, because if you're going to have a healthy, thriving, blessed, beautiful partnership, it's got to be close. It can't be lopsided in any way, or else it's not going to last. And if it does last, it will not be in joy.
So good. This is so good. So Tammy, out of the women that you help, I know your success rate is really high. Do things still fall apart sometimes with people, or not so much?
There's sometimes I want it to fall apart. I'm going to be really honest with you.
Let's talk about that. Yeah.
I'll be honest with you. There's some people that come in and I would not agree to work with them if I knew it ahead of time, but they get in and I realize that it's a little more abusive than I knew. And I don't like to work with any of that, because if I do work with someone like that, I'm not against it. It's just like, you better come in for a year. It can't be short. We got to,
right.
Because I am interested in results. It's the reason why I won't work with anyone less than 12 weeks is like, I want the results. I want the success rate. And I think I told you this before. I am not interested in necessarily that marriage staying together. I'm interested in her healing and for the relationship to be healthy. If it cannot be, so there are some, she wants it to work. She's doing everything. She's shifting, and he gets angrier and angrier and angrier, meaning they've been at this so long and he is so resistant that I'm not saying he can't change, but if he refuses to, he could potentially get more violent and escalate more, because his control is being taken away and he's used to her handing it to him constantly. And there have been a couple clients that I had that I was like, I do not recommend you stay in this relationship as it is, because
and that's a risky thing for you to say. I mean, that's a risky thing for you to say.
It's not risky for me because I know what my goal is. Like, I want a healthy, healed person. I don't want a freaking beat up, battered woman who refuses to see her worth and her value. I don't want that. And so if she can't learn that through our process by, you know, the healing modalities we work with, then it just means that she's really stubborn in her old ways and refuses to change. So I've had, I think I told you this last time, that, you know, some women that are older that I've worked with just refusing to change because they had this system going for so long and they just did not want it to budge.
Right.
But then also with women who have just been handing their power away for their entire life and just are not comfortable owning it. And those are the ones that I wish didn't work. So as of now, I have 100% success rate. However, well, I'd say that one is kind of on the fence. Nothing has happened yet, but there are plenty that through the process of healing, they realized that they were not being treated the way that they were supposed to be treated, and they weren't okay with moving forward. And that's okay with me too, as long as they're on their healing journey and not allowing someone else to take their power or hurt them or abuse them. I'm not okay with that.
Yeah. So powerful. let's talk a little bit about like masculine and feminine energy
Mm-hmm.
and dive into that just a little bit because we see a lot of that out there now. And I just
Mm-hmm.
want to kind of bring that into everything that you do and just kind of dive into that.
Yeah. Okay. So as the feminine is rising, we're seeing that's why we have, this equalness. As the feminine is rising, it's part of the, wonking up the marriage and relationships, I'd say in general. But we have to rebalance this scale, right? So if the
Mm-hmm.
scale has been so tipped on the masculine, right?
Mm-hmm.
Masculine, and now we're going like this, what this means for marriage is it has to shift. So the woman can't be expected to work the same as him, 40 hours a week, come home, do all the cooking, cleaning, do everything
Mm-hmm.
for the kids, take them everywhere, do everything she was doing before plus working. We got to balance this out, right? And so this is part of that energy part is part of her owning her own power and not handing it to him and say, you're in
Mm-hmm.
control of me. Whatever you say goes. I'll just be the submissive wife, kind of like a lot of us have been trained up in, at least that was my experience with religion, is that women are lesser than. Oh, you're a female and you're a child. Now you're just not important at all. That's kind of where my belief came in. But she has to own the fact that she is just as worthy as him so that she can ask and expect. Not saying that it will be completely 50-50, but he has to rise up to meet her. It's the same thing. So us women, we have a lot of emotional needs and men are more disconnected to their emotions. Well, now what I'm finding is men are becoming more emotional because they pretty much have to,
Mm-hmm.
right? This is
Right.
part of that balancing. If he does not start, we all have emotions just the same.
Mm-hmm.
But if he
Right.
doesn't start plugging into his emotions and start plugging into her emotions, then she's going to go find someone else who does.
Right.
So this is his calling, his upward calling to really plug into himself. This is our, I've had some clients that after we work together, she's like, we got to find someone for him. And I'm like, I wish there was a male in my space to do this sort of work with men. And I know
Mm-hmm.
there are. In fact, if you have any in mind, I'd love the
I'll have
reference.
to think about that. I probably do. I'll just have to think on that. Yeah.
But that's really, this is the time where um the old model of marriage, it's just not going to do
Mm-hmm.
anymore. We
Well, we
have
are
to
in a
create the
different
new model.
world. We
It's a
are.
completely different world.
Well, and back in the day, women stayed home. They took care of the kids. They took care of the home. You didn't have to have two incomes to live, right? And there were just so many differences. And so I completely understand as everything has shifted in our daily lives, it, things haven't caught up as far as a lot of marriages, right? Or
Exactly.
ideas around marriage. And so those old ideas still exist and still live, but it doesn't work. It's not working in life
Well,
today.
yeah. And here's the thing, like now my husband and I, we do this business together, right? But before he was in law enforcement and he was working, I stayed home and homeschooled the kids. So when we shift and pivoted and he came home and we started working together, all the rules had to be looked at, right? Like,
Mhm.
hey, I can't do this and that. Like we get to start, being, but we could never have done that in our unhealed state.
True, right.
We could not have done that. We couldn't
Hmm.
even stay home to get, like, it just would have been
Hmm.
horrible, right? In
Right.
our unhealed state. And so it's really just kind of like part of the journey of the transformation. But I can go to him and be like, hey, let's figure out this piece, or how can we, how can I take some of this off my plate, or who can we give this to? Now we have teenage daughters, and I really think that it's quite important for them to be contributing more to the house. Like, that's
Hmm.
just my personal belief. I'm like, if we were still back in tribes, you'd be doing all the duties I'm doing. We'd be splitting them up. So let's go back to those days. But I can really go to him now from this healed state and we could talk about anything.
Right.
But before, so that's why I say it's all about the healing journey, because before that, it's like everything's a horrible task. Going to
Right.
him, I didn't feel, we were just terrible teammates before. And now, now we have the oneness where him and I are together. We're yoked up, but it's a good thing because we're going to the same direction, not
Yeah.
opposite directions. So it really, that's the power of unity, of the oneness, is that the two of
Hmm.
us are going towards the same goal, and we just have more power. There's more power in that.
Yeah, and the truth is, when both of you are on the same page, when you are a team, you really are a power couple, and there's literally no stopping you. It's really interesting. My husband and I were talking about this yesterday. Our daughter's not married, and she's
Mhm.
35, and
Right.
we were talking about how difficult it is. My son's married; he has his wife. My husband and I have each other, and so we look at companionship. And I always like to say the cart and the horse, right? So you've got the horse, you've got the cart, and you can switch those places, and you can,
Yeah.
sometimes he's the horse and sometimes I'm the horse, and we're pulling the cart. And so with our daughter, for example, she's not married and she's trying to do everything by herself. And that's tough. It's tough for a woman in our society today to make her own way, to have to do everything. And she's been on her own for a very long time, but it's difficult. And we don't even realize how much we depend on each other, and
Hmm.
how much having that other person makes a difference in your life, even just little things that we
Hmm.
kind of take for granted, right? And we don't really think about anymore because that other person is just there to pick
Hmm.
up the slack. And when you're on your own and you're not married and you don't have a spouse, and I believe that's why God created marriage, right? He said man should not be alone, and there's
Well,
a
it's
reason for that.
yeah, and it's the duality. Sorry, not the duality. It's we have the opposite giftings.
True, absolutely.
So we are an asset to each other when we're in a great union, obviously when we're healthy, but we're opposites. You know how opposites attract? Well, it attracts for a reason. You like my husband, he has the extreme opposite giftings as me. And that's
Hmm.
why we do so well together, is
Well,
because
that's why we probably all fell in love with the other person
yeah.
too. Opposites really do attract. They
Hmm.
really do, because it's that balance.
But you look at someone who's single, and they don't have to go through a lot of the things that we do. So there is an upside to being single. I have some friends that are my age and they're single and no kids, no husband. And I'm like,
Mhm.
sometimes that looks really good. I'm
I
like,
think
so
you
you don't,
probably,
so you,
yeah,
you know, I mean, there's no right, wrong, good or bad. I'm just saying,
right.
like, there's the great things about everything. There's the positive
True.
and negative of everything. And does she want to be single, or would she like?
No, she's just been so career focused for all
Mm,
of these years that she's moved around a lot, and so she's going to just kill me when if she ever hears
no,
this. But she's moved around a lot, and so she
yeah.
just really hasn't had the opportunity to really build a relationship. And but no, she's planted, and that is something that she really wants and really
Yeah.
desires. But I don't know, it just came up. We were just having the conversation yesterday. Something had come up, and we said, we never really thought about it, but because he hasn't been single, I haven't been single, right? And I mean, I was when I was 20, but I said, we don't even realize how hard it is for, I think, a woman to be on her own completely and not have a
Well,
companion or not have
yeah,
someone.
I say that everything's hard. It's hard.
Hmm.
I meet a lot of married women that are completely miserable. I meet a lot of single women that are completely miserable.
Hmm.
I mean, your state of being, your emotional state is your choice. It
That's
just
right.
is. You could be
Hmm.
you could be miserable, and someone could look at your life. Like I know a lot of wealthy people, and I look at their life and I'm like, they're so miserable, and they have everything that most people think that they want.
Yeah, no,
And
that's
then
true.
I've met, I've gone to third world countries like Mexico. And I remember doing a missionary trip when I was a kid and showing up, and all these little homeless children had so much joy that I had
Mhm.
never seen, but I had never experienced it before. And I was just like, they have nothing. They're drinking out of this
Mhm.
dirty water. They don't eat every day. They're living in a
Mhm.
cardboard box and they're so joyful. So what I think is you could be joyful or you could be miserable, and that just is absolutely your choice.
So true. And that is exactly what you heal in people and help them
Yeah.
kind of get to the other side and find that joy and that peace within themselves. And
Mm-hmm.
Tammy, this has been such a great conversation. Thank you so much for sharing
Yeah.
your brilliance. How long did it take you to kind of learn everything you've learned before you stepped into helping other people?
Oh, 42 years. No, I feel like I'm always learning.
Of course, we never stop learning,
I
but
mean, I think I told you that I did hair for many, many years. And so
mhm.
I really started doing this long before I started doing this. Do you know what I'm saying? And,
Right. You were helping
then,
people without getting paid for it.
yep. And then within the church, I was in leadership for many, many years. I was doing it there for free. I was
Mhm.
doing it for free. Well, I guess not technically with hair, but for so long before I actually started to require money. But yeah, it was just like really, I've always had the gift of teaching. If I learn
Mhm.
something, I'm definitely going to teach it to everyone I know, whether
Right.
back in the day, whether or not they wanted to know about it. But I just have always had a desire to really help people. Healing is just, it's something that I'm so fascinated by. And
Mm,
it's really why I believe that I came here was to help people heal. And first
yeah.
I had to do that for myself, but I don't, it's really hard to kind of nail down time because it just kind of
Mhm.
went from step to step to step.
Mhm.
But it's interesting with my clients. I kind of have 4 pillars to my program. And the last pillar is life purpose, because what I find after we shift through and remove a lot of the junk,
Mhm.
that's where they kind of have the, oh my gosh, this is what I've always wanted to do. And usually it's helping serve people in something around healing
Mhm.
because they were given this great gift that they really
Yeah.
gave themselves. It's an investment to work with me. And they gave this gift to themselves, an investment of
Mhm.
money and time. Then they were like, I want to give this to someone else.
Yeah,
And
when
I was
you
like,
overcome something, I think all of my businesses started that way.
yeah,
When I started my fitness
yeah,
business, I had lost 50 pounds and wanted to, oh my gosh, I need to help
uh-huh,
other women. And, then that turned into 4 businesses. And then when I started coaching, it was the same thing. Okay, now I built 5 businesses and sold them. And I want to teach people business. I want to help people build wealth and,
mhm,
and become financially free and all of those things. And so my passion, I think that is coaches in general, our passion always comes from our experience in most cases, from something that we've gone
yep,
through
totally
and
agree.
yeah, struggled
They
with. And
say they say in coaching, I don't know how true it is as far as the number, but they say your ideal client is like 3 years behind you in your development.
I would say that's probably fairly accurate.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I would
So,
could be a little bit more than that, but that's
yeah,
that's a
that's what
that's
I'm
a pretty
saying.
good
I don't know about the
assessment.
number,
Yeah.
but that's what I heard. 3 years behind you.
Interesting. Yeah. So this has been so good. Tammy, how can people get a hold of you? Because I know they are going to want to reach out to you when they hear this.
Okay, so my email, do you want my email? So I have a link tree. I'm on all the platforms.
Okay, we're
And
going to
I'll
put your
give you that.
links, but what would be
Okay.
the best way that you would like them to contact you?
Well, if they want direct contact as quick as possible, it would be Tammy at, this is my email, Tammy at yourmarriage.com.
Okay, and we will
Tammy at
put that link. And
yourmarriage.com.
so that's to book a call with you.
That
And
would
do
be to
you
book a call
do
with me.
just like a quick call with them to kind of find out where they're at and
Yes. Yeah. I
like
don't
a
work with,
discovery?
yeah, I won't work with anyone unless I know exactly where they're at because
Hmm.
like I said, I don't help everyone.
Right.
I'm not interested in, you know, a, in helping a marriage that should not be helped.
Gotcha.
But
This
oftentimes we don't know that yet. So yeah, I like
sure.
to do, yeah, a 30-minute call to just see where they're at, see what they need help
Hmm.
with, and if I can be upset of can I say this? Of ups No, I can't say it. If I can help them, I will. Or I can point them in the right direction. Would be great too. But yeah, that would be how they would reach out to me and get me quickly.
And one thing I just want to bring up, and she did not bring, we maybe talked about it a little bit, but Tammy can continues to grow herself and she continues to develop new skill sets. And I think that's really important. I do that as well. And I think that's really important when you are hiring someone to work with. Are they current? Are they relevant? Are they staying on top of their expertise and consistently growing? And I think that's really important. And I know Tammy does that because, like I said, we actually met in kind of a mindset program.
Yep.
So, yeah, but Tammy, thank you. This has been so great. I have loved having you on here, and I'm just so honored and grateful that you were here with me. Thank you again.
Thank you for having me.
You
Anytime.
are awesome. You're awesome. All right, everyone. So reach out to Tammy. She's also very active on Facebook and probably Instagram too, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Instagram's probably my most active platform.
Okay. Well, I see her on Facebook all the time, but reach out to her. We'll put her links in the show notes. You can get a hold of her. And, you know, if it's not you, you may know someone that needs Tammy. So definitely send them her way. I know she's excellent at what she does. That's why she's on here, because this is the Expert in You podcast. So, all right, everyone, thank you. Share this. And I always say sharing is caring. And we're trying to get this podcast up to the top 1%. So we really appreciate if you share it with other people and let them hear these experts that I have on here. So thank you again. And until next time, God bless you. Have an amazing day. Bye-bye.
Thank you for tuning in today. If you're as excited as I am about scaling up your influence, business, and bank account, then I have just the thing for you. But first, make sure you subscribe to the show. Second, make sure you share it with someone you care about, because sharing is caring. And third, head on over to join me in my next free virtual exclusive workshop, where we'll explore proven strategies to boost your business and maximize your potential. Look, it doesn't matter if you're just starting out or if you're looking to take your business to the next level, my workshops are designed for you. So head on over to expertinyouworkshop.com to reserve your spot and get ready to transform your expertise into extraordinary success. I'm looking forward to seeing you there and helping you achieve incredible growth. Until next time, make sure you're always seeking the expert in you, and God bless. Have an amazing day.